Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our third Retrofit Talks, an event series running in parallel to our physical exhibition here at the Building Centre, which runs until the 19th of September. For those who are unaware, Retrofit 25 explores the solutions that are helping us navigate the barriers, uncovering opportunities involved in retrofitting our built environment. As we face the pressing challenges of climate breakdown, economic instability, and social inequality, this exhibition is designed to inspire you to consider moving past what's stopping us from retrofitting. The tools, technologies, and approaches to retrofit our built environment already exist. Now, communities, industries, and policymakers must come together to make retrofit a reality. Today, we are honoured to be joined by one of our partners, the Chartered Institute of Architectural Technologists. CIAT is a leading professional membership and qualifying body for architectural technology. It is a not-for-profit organisation that exists to lead, represent and promote architectural technology and set the discipline's education, practice and professional standards. Mervyn Pilley, Business Development and External Affairs Executive, will outline the key role played by architectural technologists within the retrofit sector, from initial assessment and analysis of buildings through to design solutions, developing plans and specifications to implementing strategies to reduce energy consumption. Joining Mervyn will be Dr. Barry McCarron, who's the Managing Director of Corrie Retrofit, one of Ireland's leading one-stop shop providers of comprehensive retrofit solutions. To complement Mervyn, Barry will outline his vision for delivering energy efficiency measures to all property types at scale. Additionally, Barry will discuss the support system offered by and benefits of CIAT membership, with a special nod towards the AT Awards taking place in October, which celebrates outstanding achievement in the discipline of architectural technology. The event schedule, Mervyn and Barry's presentation will last for approximately 20 to 25 minutes, after which we will have time for a Q&A with a close of the webinar at 1:45. So please do think of some questions to ask as the presentations are going. This is a live recording and will be available via our YouTube channels shortly after the session ends. Now, without further ado, let me hand over to the very capable hands of Mervyn and Barry to kick things off.
Thank you very much, Andy, and thank you for the opportunity to present today as part of Retrofit 25, which I must be honest, I've been to the exhibition. It's very positive, very good, and certainly supports the whole world of retrofit and the importance of retrofit. So as Andy's already highlighted, my role at Chartered Institute of Architectural Technologies is very much focusing around development of the sector. I think one of our biggest jobs at CIAT is to tell the world about what architectural technologists actually do and the role that they play. A bit of background about CIAT: we're 60 years old this year. It's our 60th anniversary. We've held a Royal Charter for the last 20 years, so that just proves that we are a reputational institute in our own right, as rewarded by the Privy Council in rewarding a charter. That's important, I think. We've got 9,000 members approximately, and whilst the majority of our members are in the UK, we have members, including Ireland, I should stress, we have members in the rest of the world as well. And obviously we have global ambitions, like any membership body would have, to build its membership. I must be honest, I'm not an architectural technologist, so I'm not going to be really focusing too much what's on the slides here, but I did want to put into post really what I think some of the solutions that architectural technologists, I believe, are ideally, I'd say we believe, are ideally placed to provide retrofit solutions for both commercial and domestic retrofit properties. It's critically important. Barry, I know, will go through his slides in terms of the importance of retrofit to the marketplace in the UK. Certainly, the net zero ambitions, we have a very old, outdated building stock in the UK. Most of the buildings we have are going to have in 2050 already with us. So we've really got to focus on retrofit, I think, to get us over the line. And decarbonisation of buildings is a critical part, because building sector is very heavily responsible for a very large proportion of the target requirement. So just running through, as I say, I'm not a technical man, so really these slides are just to highlight, the two slides just to highlight really, I think, the focus. I think the most important thing to say, which really sums up these two slides, is that architectural technologists focus on the building science and the building physics as opposed to just the design, but they marry the two things together, which I think is what makes architectural technologists uniquely placed to provide these solutions. Because when you're designing buildings, or if you have designed buildings, you invariably will have a much. If you understand how the buildings work, then if you're looking to retrofit solutions, that clearly gives you quite a good head start on that process. So yes, just very quickly running through the slides, running through the bullet points there on the slide. A strong bridge between the design and the delivery of a project. I think that goes without saying, as I pretty much already said, combining the design and the technical. Building science, I've mentioned building science. I think that's unique in many ways for architectural technologists. They really do understand how the buildings work as opposed to just how they look. But obviously, it's the combination, it's the holistic approach to the building that's important. We have to, as part of our chartered status, we have to focus very heavily on code and regulation compliance. Like any good membership professional body, we do need to be sure that our members are compliant with all legislation, technology changes, and there's a lot of it, as you will obviously, anyone in the built environment is very aware at the moment. There's been a lot of very rapid change, a lot of important change, and not just obviously to do with retrofit, covering the whole area. In fact, to be fair, sustainability and the net zero targets obviously is much older in many ways than some of the more pressing current topics relevant to the built environment. Innovative material use, I think the whole reuse agenda is becoming more and more relevant in the sector. Whole life carbon buildings is a discussion point. Whatever you call it, circular economy, all of these points I think are highly relevant at the moment and very topical. And I think, again, our members are uniquely placed for that debate. My God, an old concept of value engineering. I know that's been a term being used by quite a few for a long time. But it's important because obviously in the current pressures, financial, economic pressures of putting buildings together and getting buildings built, which obviously in the UK certainly is very heavily a target at the moment, big focus on getting buildings built. Cost effective is critical. There's certainly lots more cost pressures on building at the moment, which makes that job even more important. Hard word to say, interdisciplinary collaboration. I think this is critical. Construction, I've been involved with the built environment sector for a very long time, 40 years, to be honest. And I've seen collaborations come and go, many new bodies start, many old bodies merge. I think the interdisciplinary aspect of built environment is critical. And obviously architectural technologists, when they're running projects, they build the whole thing around pulling contractors together, pulling design together. The whole aspect is important. Engineering of buildings and so on. Really playing that key role is critical. Client-centric, well, without clients, who's going to live in the buildings, who's going to buy the buildings? So clients have got to be really focused on the whole project and the whole process. And again, I think the experience of many of our members, certainly we've got about 2,000 members currently in practice out of that 9,000. So, clearly, although the others are mostly working for the other bigger practices out there. So big focus around client-centric solutions, making sure that the solutions are practical, user-focused spaces are being built, both technically and aesthetically. And last but not least, I've already alluded to the fact that chartered status is important for us. I say we have had our own charter for the last 20 years. It does raise the debate about how unique our profession is. One of the key things about being awarded a Royal Charter by the Privy Council is that you are basically preeminent in a unique profession, which to me does drive forward the discussion about architects and the relationship between architects and architectural technologists. So yes, hopefully that's a very quick whiz through why I think architectural technologists are ideally placed to provide these solutions. So I'm now going to hand over to my esteemed colleague, Dr. Barry McCarron, who is indeed an architectural technologist. So Barry, you're the technology man. And I'm very happy to hand the floor over to you to take us forward with what you believe in case studies and how the actual practicalities. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mervyn. Yeah, brilliant. Again, yeah, I'm delighted to have been invited here today to chat to you. I haven't been over to the exhibition yet, but it looks fantastic. And again, Retrofit is close to my heart, obviously, and as is CIAT. I'm very proud to be a fellow chartered architectural technologist as well. So again, I'm going to sort of hit the notes that Mervyn's hit along the way and maybe underline some of his points and maybe augment them, pull them out a little bit, while giving you a little bit of a walkthrough of where I see the retrofit sector going. In some respects, I'm going to talk about the perspective from the Irish context. But that's not too really dissimilar at all to what we're seeing in the other sort of jurisdictions across Ireland and the UK at all. So looking forward to this, and hopefully it really stirs the point for some the pot, sorry, for some really good questions at the end, which I'm looking forward to, along with the others here as well. So first of all, the retrofit landscape. Mervyn did steal a wee bit of my thunder there. He was right in what he said. Come 2050, this is a stat that's rolled out all the time. You're looking at 80% of the buildings that are going to be around in 2050 currently exist today. So, retrofit is a real segment within this sector going forward. In my mind, it's only going to grow in importance because of a host of reasons, namely, probably the most obvious one is embodied carbon. These buildings already exist, the carbon has already been spent. And they're there. And then the other need is the social aspect. Again, I'll definitely speak from an Irish context, and I do know in Northern Ireland it's the case. My mum is from Scotland, and indeed visiting other parts of the UK, we can all say that some of our towns and villages could be in better health when it comes to some of the I suppose apartments above the shops, the town centres, and all of this as well. So again, retrofit feeds right into the heart of that problem as well. So that's really the landscape that we're looking at. But what's really important when you make an intervention to improve a building, it's important that you get it right, and that's a big emphasis that I'm sort of going to try and build on with this presentation. So what's happening in the Republic of Ireland specifically is we have a target for 2030 of 500,000 retrofits. Now again, in comparison to other jurisdictions in the UK, and that's maybe small enough numbers, but within the Irish context, they're quite significant. And the target there is to get them from wherever they are below up to a B2, and that's the equivalent to the SAP rating as well. So you're into that B sort of area. But of course, it's probably no surprise already listening to me that I would like to go over and above. Why always just get across the bar if you can go higher? So we're definitely a core retrofit, big advocates of that. But what has happened from this target got put in place is that in Ireland we established this concept, which is in other jurisdictions across Europe, of the one-stop shop sort of arrangement, and there's now 23 in existence here in the Republic of Ireland, and Core Retrofit were the very first one. So what we're seeing in the Irish market is a sort of a competition almost between fabric retrofit and alongside a technology retrofit solution. So in some respects, the technology solution is a heat pump married with PV very oftenly, and then also you would have in play battery storage, and with that you get electrification and the decarbonisation of heating via that road. It might be no surprise to some that I'm an advocate of fabric first retrofit, and with that I think you cure systemic problems in a building like mold, condensation, the overall health of the building, and of course the comfort is what all of that is in a nutshell. Whereas the technology retrofit in some respects struggles potentially to improve the actual building fabric. And here's a good example. And again, I'm very proud of this because it did win an award recently last year over in London. It was a fabulous night. And again, I have to give that a plug, where we were highly commended for the small and medium award within the CIAT awards. So that was my glum looking bungalow. It is very similar to any bungalow, no matter what jurisdiction you're in. And there it is. You can even see the big long radiator under that front bay window with where the lovely brown brick has some effervescence emanating out of it, because most of the heat is going through the wall, not into the room. So there you are. That's the original bungalow, and hopefully you think that this is an improvement. So we were able to upgrade that building to a full passive house standard home in the end. And with that, I'll talk you through the 5 principles in a minute, but to give you an idea, and very often I can talk about U values and psi values and all this technical stuff, but what most people respond to is pounds and pence. So the original bungalow was costing for all energy about €4,500 a year. That includes your electric, your oil heating. It also included multi-fuel in terms of coal, slack, and timber for 2 stoves, of course, 2 stoves, not one, two. And all of that together added up to €4,500. The heating for this building, since we've 2 years on now, just coming up, since we moved in, and you're now looking at around 500 to 600 euros all in, and this is fabulous, and it's also enabled an electric car. You can't see in this photograph, but at the back of the house there is solar panels. And again, not to create confusion, I am a fan of renewable energy as well, but I'll come into where that comes into play in a wee minute. But it also enabled an electric car, but we'll come to that. So that's a real life case study, which brings to life maybe some of this conversation. So what is the opportunity? The opportunity and the crux of this really for me is architectural technologists in particular. I've reaped the benefits of it in being an architectural technologist, being at the cold face of things like the passive house movement in the UK and here at home in Ireland. And there's some fabulous work and there's some fabulous movements all coming into play. In London, you have Letty. In various places around the UK, you've got fabulous projects. Goldsmith Street won the Sterling Award. You go up to Scotland, you have some fabulous stuff there with the universities and schools. Again, just this last week, Barrett's, the home builders there in London announced that with Ealing County Council that they're going to be doing 600 to 700 certified passive house units there as well. And again, within that sector, a significant part of that is retrofit, and specifically the Enerfit standard as well. So let's break down what it is I'm talking about. Now, again, I'm not evangelical about all things passive house. Not everything has to be a certified passive house, but I do want to leave this thumbprint on everybody of what a lot of us refer to as the 5 principles. And again, even that talk of the 5 principles, we have to be careful about as well, because well, I'll come to that in a minute. But the first principle of this is thermal insulation. No big surprise there. It is the floors, the walls, and roof. We insulate this really well now, and it's typically to a value of 0.15 or better. That's okay, because in most jurisdictions, the building regulations are trending towards a figure of 0.15 for your floor, walls, and roof. Here in Ireland, we've already arrived at those numbers. So there's nothing new. There's nothing new in that. The next principle is thermal bridging. And it's so important. I've pulled out another slide after this one to specifically talk about it. But that's really the junctions of the floors, the walls, and roof where they come together, coupled with the windows. So where the windows go into the walls, you're talking a linear meterage of that connection of where the window will sit in the wall. And so it's just around careful detailing. And I can't think of a better profession than architectural technologists to be in pole position there to advise and to do good details and to really lead the way in that, along with the other professionals. And Mervyn touched on it, the collaboration with the other people in the built environment. So that's the second principle. The third one is triple glazed windows. Now, realistically, in this day and age, again, we can talk about affordability, surely, but again, it's a very simple equation. If you put in high quality products in the form of triple glazed windows, you really are future proofing the building. It would be very rare that you would find people pulling out double glazed windows to put in double glazed windows. So we're looking at triple glazed windows, but there's a way to box very smart with that. And I think there's not enough attention given to what I'm about to say. Oftentimes there's too much glazing. and it does cause a problem. It can lead to things like overheating in homes, particularly that are not sort of going through passive house certification and these types of things. Consider corner windows. They seem to be everywhere. You know, you're talking maybe €7,000 to support a corner window with steelwork. Is it necessary? Are you looking out at the Lake District? Are you looking out at something worth looking at? Or are you looking into your neighbour? Or are you looking into your garage, you know? And then the last point to make about windows is also try and eliminate north glazing on the northern elevation. The sun will never shine on the northern window, and it will hemorrhage heat, even any window. But if you have masses of expansive glass on the northern side, you're just beat before you start. So that's the third principle. Try and keep momentum going. And the last two, I think, often go very much hand in hand. We're making the building airtight now, and I think a lot more people are upon the train of this now. Understand it. It is not breathability. Airtightness is about limiting the air infiltration in and out of the building, having it controllable as opposed to having it ad hoc. Okay, so if you lived at the cliffs of Dover and the wind's howling across the channel, sure, the wind's going to howl through your house. So if your building's airtight, then you're not as exposed to this uncontrolled heat loss. And what that does, and that has to go hand in hand with the last principle of this, which is mechanical heat recovery ventilation. So if you mechanically ventilate a building and you have air tightness, then it works. And indulge me for a minute, because this happens in your car every day. So if you can imagine a cold winter's day and you get into your car will take a couple of miles of driving before you're recovering heat from the engine to heat you up in the cockpit of the car. If the four windows of your car were down as you hurtle around the M25, well, you're going to be froze. It's not going to work. And then equally in the summertime, think about how air conditioning works. If the four windows of the car are up, then you get the air conditioning working very efficiently. Now, I'm not advocating air conditioning, but it's the same principle. If there's air leakage, these technologies won't work as well. And also, I have to draw a line under this myth. You can still open the windows. You still can open the windows in your car, but you're not reliant upon a good indoor air quality with just opening your windows. It's already taken place with technology. But if you want further ventilation or increased ventilation, no problem. In fact, night purging, which cools the house down at night, that's the premier way to do it, just by opening windows on the latch. Okay, so that's the 5 principles. We've done that. But what that does is that drives down your heating demand. And then here comes the plug and play. If it's only then that I feel that you should bring into play renewables. So if you lower your demand, that means you have less demand for your renewable energy to heat. Therefore, it's a hand in glove. It works well. All renewable energies, I learned a long time ago, are low grade heating technologies. So if you have a big heating demand and you're asking a renewable to come in, the renewable is going to struggle to meet it. And we've seen enough water under the bridge now in all jurisdictions on retrofits that have resulted in unintended consequences. So the secret sauce is really about doing your fabric first, doing it well when you're doing that intervention, getting all of these 5 principles covered, lowering your demand, and then bringing in your technology. And when you bring in your technology, then a heat pump, you can be sure it's going to work. Alongside then PV, it can talk to the heat pump nowadays, that'll work. And then a battery, and then an EV. So all those pieces of the jigsaws. And the beauty of renewables is they can be built on like Lego bricks. They don't all have to be bought at the one time. So that's an important message, I think. So I pulled out, and I said I would do it. I pulled out specifically thermal bridging because I feel it's very misunderstood. This diagram shows you thermal bridging. Everywhere where there's a red line is thermal bridging. And a lot of people don't really know, and I think there's a bit of I'm formerly a cyclist, and in the cycling circles, anyone that's into it and watched the Tour de France, there's a word that's used, unfortunately, about the drug stories in cycling, where they use this word about an omerta, And I think the construction industry suffers a wee bit from this. There's a bit of nodding dog syndrome. Oh yeah, I know about thermal bridging. It's okay to say you don't. So in my example there of a bungalow, that bungalow has just about 250 linear meters of thermal bridging. So again, to give you a scale reference, that's the height of the Eiffel Tower. So my little house, which is only 188 meters squared, has the same amount of thermal bridging as the height of the Eiffel Tower. So if I didn't do good detailing, then that's going to leak heat for the next 50 years. And it's as easy to do it right when you're getting the opportunity to do it. So that's the message on thermal bridging. The next one is ventilation. I think this is the key as well. The key one that's missed. So I talked about principle 4 and principle 5 being air tightness and mechanical heat recovery ventilation. We already know that the climate change impacts are resulting in, warmer weather in lots of different jurisdictions. Now, again, it's climate change, so there is in some other jurisdictions differences. And into the future, if the Gulf Stream were to be affected, the likes of Ireland could actually be quite a cold climate. So not to have that confusion there. But if we look at it, what we're striving for in this diagram, and this is referred to by some as the fried egg diagram, you want to be right bang in the middle of that egg yolk where it talks the word comfortable is. And if you go down to the bottom, that's literally from 18 degrees to 24 degrees. SIBSE says that 25 degrees is overheating, and SIBSE also says that if you're below 16 degrees, that's thermal discomfort. 21 degrees is considered the design temperature for a building, so says SIBSE. This all corresponds with Passive House. So we know these numbers. Again, think about your car. You actually get into your car, the set point is 21 degrees. If you go to turn down the cooling in your car, it cuts out at 16 degrees. If you go to turn it up, it stops at 25 degrees. So these things are embedded all around us. And then if we look at relative humidity, and consider in Ireland and the UK, which is a cool temperate climate, relative humidity shouldn't ordinarily be a problem. But you're talking 70 to 30% is where you want to be in that zone. So again, mechanical heat recovery, to just give you an example, that delivers 220 cubes of air into my home, and it also at the very same time exhausts 220 cubes of air per hour. We all live in the 21st century. We all look into our phones every day. This is what buildings should be done. They should be breathing with technology like this. 220 cubes out and 220 cubes in. That's what results in a good indoor air quality. And again, I'm making the point here that architectural technologists are at the coalface of this. They really are. In an awful lot of architect's office, it's the AT that leads on these things. It's the AT that leads on air tightness detailing, sizing of ventilation, understands the technologies that are out there in the different systems, the ducting, how to do the ducting runs, all of this here. So these are what I think are the key issues. So there's that. Now, hopefully that's going to generate some discussion, maybe different views. They're all welcome. Mine's only one perspective. And then the other area that's, rising all the time, and rightly so, is the other key measurement of carbon. So you've got a couple of different measurements in building performance all the time. One, for some people, is money. How much is this costing to run? For some, it's kilowatt hours. And then for others, it's carbon. But they're all tied together. So the big win with retrofit is, and I said it at the very start, is embodied carbon. If we can utilize with what's already there in terms of building materials, then we're winning. We're winning already with retrofit. So it's a big thing going forward. It will be interesting to watch planning over the coming years as well around all of this. There is a movement in Europe around, it's called sufficiency, efficiency, and then renewables. And again, I'm very much wedded to that myself. So sufficiency, we will have to, I'll definitely talk about Ireland. In Ireland, we have one-off housing everywhere. And one-off housing very often are like palaces. They're far too big. Do we really need to be building houses that size? and then we end up with empty nesters and racking around big houses and stuff like this. So again, we build what we need maybe in the first instance, and I expect that to come to planning along with utilising existing buildings. And then the operational carbon, just to box it off, that's what we've more or less been talking around about lowering the energy demand in the previous slides. So if you can do well on both of those, you have a good carbon score as well. So then again, to give a nod to some other things that are in my mind just when doing a talk like this, we have passed 2035 and 2030. Again, Peter Rickaby and Sarah Price, people that have worked on this, fantastic work. I suppose one thing I want to draw out or pull out is that past 2035, 30 is not a standard, it's a process. It's a very, very good process. It really does ensure a quality outcome in lots of respects. But the perfect arrangement is to wed that with the likes of Retrofit, which again is the passive house standard for retrofit. And again, it's in a nutshell those 5 principles. And again, architectural technologists are really well equipped to be the actors that are in this space within the built environment. And again, I suppose rounding off now and coming to the end, you know, I often say whenever I'm doing lectures, you know, if all of us were put in charge of the world's climate change problem in a room, some whiz kid in the room after enough time have passed would say, well, what is the low-hanging fruit? What is the biggest problem out there? We hear stuff about carbon sequestration, we have carbon capture, we have extortion of money involved, we have, you know, growing trees, planting trees. All of these things are going to be part of the story. But the single biggest issue, the built environment, sitting at 40%. To give a context to that, all the airplanes in the sky don't even come to 3%. Yet all you hear is people going on about all the planes in the sky and stuff like this. Newspapers, headlines sensationalize that, but it's only 3%. Built environment's way worse. So that should be food for thought. We all, in all the different jurisdictions, have very similar targets for 2030, which is only now a few years away. We also have 2040, and we also have 2050 as targets and milestones along the way, and they're all very similar. So we're all in the same boat as far as I can see, and all of these solutions are very much levers for all of us. So that's the presentation. Hopefully I've done it justice in terms of being invited here today, but I'll happily open the floor to hopefully some good discussion and hopefully some good questions. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Barry and Mervyn, collectively there, making a very compelling case and a comprehensive explanation of the role and importance of AT. So thank you very much for doing that. Barry, in particular, the fried egg diagram is something that I will take away with me. So props out to your son for that comment. But we now have an opportunity for some questions from the floor. We've got one here, and this is directed towards you, Barry, and it is as the only approved one-stop shop in Ireland, what benefits does this bring to you as a business, and typically what measures do you install?
Yeah. So again, I suppose it's small correction. There's up to 23 of us now, but we were the original. Moving on, one-stop shops, I suppose USP is exactly what it says on the tin. One-stop shop. Very often the barrier for a lot of people with retrofit is simply put, and we're all the same. Everybody knows busy lives, lots of things going on. Our house is no different. We've 3 kids running around here at home. Some days I don't even know what day of the week it is, and on it goes. Football practice, all these things. We all know it's day-to-day life. The thought of a construction project, the thought of a retrofit, the thought of having to live in a house while a retrofit's going on is overwhelming. So the one-stop shop is really an answer in part to exactly that. And what we offer is everything. Project management. We'll get you a contractor if you don't have one. If you have one, we'll onboard them and we'll take them on and we'll explain how the process works. And we'll administer, thankfully in Ireland, the lucrative grants that are available to kickstart all of this industry. So people don't have to fill out forms and they don't have to go through that pain. So it's taken a bit of the bureaucracy out of it. Are we slick? yeah, I think in core retrofit we're definitely getting there. We're definitely leading the way along with some others. Could it be better? It always could be, but definitely going in the right direction. Yeah.
I think, Andy, if I could just pick up on that actually, which I think is relevant for the whole UK market. I think one of the critical things here for me is educating the public, educating the clients about retrofit, about the benefits, the pluses. And Barry's route is quite a good route in terms of having that one-stop shop solution. I know in the UK, the government attempted to try and promote retrofit and energy efficiency in a rather, they spent quite a bit of money to try and promote it through advertising. It wasn't particularly successful. I know that one of the failings of the sector, one of the things that holding us back to, the barriers has been the lack of knowledge from people. You're asking the public to spend quite reasonable amounts of money, whether it's technology or fabric. Some of that's grant funded, as Barry's mentioned about grant funding. I think Ireland may have more generous grants than the UK in terms of grant funding. If you're asking members of the public to buy into those solutions, then clearly they need to understand quite a lot more about why that's going to present them with value. Really, we could do with a presentation like this for every single member of the public out there, someone who wants people who are looking to buy in. That's a critical thing for me. So I think that fits in more with that whole one-stop shop approach. We don't really have, I think, to be fair, Barry, in the UK, in England and Wales specifically, a one-stop shop approach, which could be a fault of the profession in terms of providing that solution. It might be a fault of the government in not encouraging it.
I think kind of linked to that is that there's I think there's a general perception or even an acceptance that retrofit can be quite technical. And I think certainly your presentation there, Barry, and what you've explained, Mervyn, about CIAT is very illuminating to the sort of people that don't have that education. Do you think that actually the role of ATs and the breadth of responsibility you have can play quite a leading role in trying to sort of humanize the process, if that makes sense?
Yes, but we're a very small. We're a very small voice, aren't we, Barry? Really, I mean, it's very hard for even when not just I'd like CIAT to take over the world with our 9,000 members. We are but a small voice, and of course, it's very difficult to. That's back to that interdisciplinary collaboration where you really get the whole built environment sector to do the job of telling the world. Barry, sorry, I apologize. I'm stealing your thunder, but I think you're the man at the coalface, as you quite succinctly put it earlier. And I think whilst we can do a lot and we can encourage everyone to do this, ultimately we need government, we need policy, we need people, someone to really drive us from the other side as well.
I couldn't agree more. You in some ways have answered the question quite well. It's sort of been surmised between the question and the answer there. You've got it in a nutshell. It really is the marriage of this quality assured retrofit. And again, what's done is done in various places. And again, just maybe to bring back one of the things Andy said, some councils and cities within the UK are definitely moving and exploring the one-stop shop sort of arrangement. So it wouldn't surprise me at all for some people in this to start to see them spring up. I know that in Yorkshire and Leeds there was definitely one that I absolutely know about that's underway.
I think communities as well play that part, don't they, Barry? Just that role of a community can do as much for themselves, both in renewable terms and also, I think, in retrofit. It's that community aspect.
I've got a general question here, but it's linked to the debate about retrofit and energy efficiency measures. And the question is, with the cost and risk in financing social housing retrofits, how do you see social housing owners moving to less technology retrofits and using more fabric first retrofits? I'll give you both an opportunity to answer that.
I'll kick off with this one. Again, for the one-stop shops in Ireland, there is two schemes. And again, there's in no way am I being crass about it. The scheme in Ireland is called the Warmer Homes. And again, this goes to quite an older demographic. And again, some people with various needs and stuff. And that funding is 100% 100% of the retrofit gets funded, and then the one-stop shop model is more private homeowners, and that somewhat at the moment in Ireland, thankfully, is covers about 50% of one's retrofit. So when going back to the social issues, in some ways you can't put a price on comfort, performance, indoor air quality. There's been a raft of studies, one in particular in Nottingham, that looked at the savings for the NHS in having sort of hypothetical wide scale implementation of what I've sort of presented today. And that's I suppose in hypothetical on one hand, but and not tangible, but I mean there's almost, you just can't leave it alone. And then when you go to the nub of the question, it really is I think where money can be got, and now money comes from just loads of other places as well, maybe also the corporate world. There's a big win there in fully funding these things and having these interventions. But I'll fall on my sword on this one. The big thing is the fabric gets invested in, so therefore
Mm.
the asset, if you like, is improved.
Yeah.
How it's heated technology wise, there is a myriad of solutions for that. But back to what I was saying in the talk, if it's a lower demand, it's less of a battle. I think that's the same.
I think it's interesting as well, just following up on that point. I think one of the better solution that's happened in recent years was the public sector decarbonisation fund in the UK, where rather than the challenge with the Green Homes Grant Scheme, for example, where we were trying to do interventions at scale, which unfortunately failed quite miserably for the private sector, for the people, individual residents, as opposed to the public sector decarbonisation, where it was actually taken on by local authority delivery, street-wide delivery. That's the difference for me, and that's where it's a challenge. But what I also would agree totally with Barry on is that health issue. We've got AWAB's law, we've got mold, we've got all sorts of, and some of our some of the social housing is catastrophically bad, to be honest, and it's asset value. Why would you build houses that are going to be clearly not fit for purpose so soon after you built them and made them?
Mhm.
Yeah, it's such a no-brainer from a health perspective, from an economic perspective, but somewhere along the line, someone ultimately has to pay for that to happen. And this is back to the fully funded national retrofit plan that I know National Retrofit Hub and has been supporting and trying to move the whole agenda forward.
Mm. There's a good question here that links quite a few of these topics together, actually. So, whilst they acknowledge it's an open question, but this person is saying that they're seeing more contractors need to look at the life cycle of products that are being specified. So they've used the example of UPVC versus composite windows. Cost always comes into play, as discussed, but as a retrofit business, so it's probably more directed towards you, Barry. Do you take this into consideration, and are ATs in general doing the same?
Yeah, so again, when it comes to these, again, I've a degree of clarity in my mind around it. Sometimes we don't advocate, particular products, particular solutions, particular ways of doing things. It's all about the building physics. So if you're talking about a wall, I don't really care what you use as long as you get to 0.15 or better. If it's a window, again, don't really care. There is measurements such as the U value of the frame, the G value of the glass, the overall U value of the window installed, which includes the detail of the window being installed. These are all, I suppose, they bring you to a level playing field where you can compare an apple with an apple. And the science in some ways doesn't lie on this. And again, I think the ATs are right at the heart of that, in lots and lots of ways. And again, just to touch on what Mervyn finished off on, he absolutely bang on. We do not need to be retrofitting a retrofit, or we don't need to be building brand new houses today only for to have to retrofit them as well. There's enough retrofitting going to be having to be done without having to that. So again, if I had an appeal, or it was a dream scenario, and again, back to that previous question about who somebody has to pay for it. The return on investment is there, and that's why I touched on the corporates as well. I think they're not far away from understanding all of this and maybe coming into that landscape. It's all there is going to be a return on investment on it, and the sooner it's done, build costs, inflation, we've seen what's happened over the last, let's say, even 5 years. If you were to build 5 years ago to now, huge difference already. So there's no better time than the present, really, to jump in. And of course, there's a climate imperative going on as well. So, you know.
Unfortunately, Barry, it also coincides with an economic crisis at the moment. We've got, it's
Yeah.
not the perfect storm of, I think, going back to that question, Andy, is the perfect storm of economics and costs meets climate imperative and retrofit imperative, and that's the problem. How do we balance the two?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, as a profession, we can't really do that. That ultimately, again, is back to the government issue for me. It's back to policy. It's back to funding available and support. So yeah, and just that last point about carbon. It's that you reuse the materials. It's making sure we're not. Yeah, I mean, I've got some interesting discussions with members around all sorts of alternative materials, and I agree with Barry. For the AT, it's often around it's the result that's more important. It's the science that's more important than that issue around are we using the right material? But it's a it's a big jigsaw puzzle. It's a big jigsaw puzzle.
One thing that will influence that over time is that carbon. So back to that just last question, and to really probably conclude and answer it properly is once carbon comes in as another measurement there, it is, I did say about the science and the U value. Once you're carbon counting as well, it will start to, rearrange maybe some of the materials that are often selected.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, we're running out of our time here, Mervyn, Barry, and I think that there's a lot of discussion that could be ongoing here. So, Barry, I do understand that both of you have given your contact details, so please do share that again. To me, it's been an absolutely brilliant session, and I've really learned the minutiae involved and the range of responsibilities that ATs have. So I hope that that's been picked up on with all our audience as well. So thank you very much, Mervyn and Barry, for your time. It's been a great session. For everyone else, please do join us for our next series of webinars, which will be focusing on jobs, specifically how we can bridge the skills gap to enable the delivery of retrofit at scale. We have a bit of a hiatus next week, but we start again on the 3rd of June as a panel discussion featuring our partners Saint-Gobain, Ventrola and Aquarid Lowry, assessing the current situation with regards to jobs in the retrofit sector. And then on the 4th of June, Rahal, another one of our partners, will be taking a closer look at their collaboration with Building Your Skills. And then on the 10th of June, we'll be having a deep dive with Saint-Gobain into training and upskilling of the current and future workforce. So please do join us. But for now, thank you very much, Mervyn and Barry. It's been a pleasure. Enjoy the rest of your days. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you for listening. Thank you.
Cheers, Andy. All right, Mervyn.
Bye.
Bye.